Hey everybody, it's Matt Shares here for another episode of SBI's Revenue Growth Help Desk, featuring today a gentleman I've never met, Scott Gruher, who is our senior partner, who I've had the good fortune of getting to know the last 20 years. Scott and I just came off hosting one of our CEO growth forums, and probably one of the best things that he and I get to do on a quarterly basis is to run these meetings. So, Gru, good to see you again, brother.
Good to see you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah, very good. Let's see if we can figure this out. So, Gru, this was a really good growth forum from my perspective because of the guest speakers that we had and the topics that they brought with them. And you and I and Mel got to play matchmaker, and then we just shut up and we served virtual coffee. So it was good. Our purpose right now is to give some sound bites to our audience around what was discussed and let the team sort of get a purview. So the first topic I want to hit, we had Mike Gregoire on, and for those that don't know, Mike has been a technology superstar. He's now leads his own private equity fund, but before that, he sold CA to Broadcom for just under 19 billion with a B. Before that, he sold Taleo to Oracle. And before that, he was number 2 at PeopleSoft and sold them to Oracle. So relative to knowing how to create value, I'm not sure there's many people who have a better purview than Mike. So, Gru, I guess if you think about what Mike shared with the group and the robust Q&A that we had around this whole concept of creating value, like I guess from your perspective, what did you see as a couple of the big takeaways for the role of CEO?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that shocked me and was very impressive about Mike, even though he's generated all those billions of dollars, as you mentioned, he's super close to the customer. And he was always very close to the customer experience and influencing that with his team. And the overall theme, I would say, was radically simplify your go-to-market. Make it easy for customers to engage with you, implement, and just constantly look for ways to take friction out of the system. And I thought the way he presented that was fascinating.
Yeah. And then, Scott, one of my components, if you think about Mike's theme around simplification and like being easy to implement whatever your solution is, right? Make it easy to use it, make it easy to renew it. Like you're right, it was all about taking friction out. But he also spoke about like the type of talent at each stage of the life cycle that he had, because I mean, he was at companies that were at total different maturities. And so I guess from your perspective, for the CEOs that are watching and listening, there's different types of talent, kind of based on where you are on your life cycle. So thoughts and points of view on that section, Gru?
Yeah, I think the thing that was fascinating there to me was different parts of the life cycle, but also there's different businesses within the business. Mm-hmm. Right. So at CA, they were standing up a SaaS model within their legacy, if you will, on-prem model. Right. Yeah. In most businesses, that's happening today as well, which is there's multiple revenue streams that are very different and different talent requirements. And I see too many people make the mistake of trying to port over people they trust into the new model. Doesn't usually work because it's a very different model, or they make talent moves too late. They just hold on too late, even though in their gut they know it's the wrong move, and then it backfires. So you got to look at the life cycle and say, okay, what do I need early on? Early on, I need more of a builder, whether you're standing up a new business model or within an existing business model. Or is something really broken and we need to transform it? I need more of a transformational leader. Or is this thing running okay? We just need to optimize it, and I need a runner. I need somebody that's just going to optimize it.
Yep.
So,
and I think, Scott, that portfolio approach, like you just mentioned, different leaders inside the major business for different things, especially when you are doing a revenue model shift, which you and I are immersed in revenue model shifts across a series of different verticals. It's not just, oh yeah, software companies going from on-prem to subscription. Like everybody is trying to figure out some form of a managed service. Right? Everyone is trying to figure out, how do I get more from this existing customer base and still create this elegant experience? Which leads me to big topic number 2, which was organizational clarity and specifically customer experience design. So our good friend Nick Mehta, who's the CEO of Gainsight, right, the leader in the customer success software business. Nick came and joined us, and we've got a great relationship with him. And he led a super riveting session around the whole concept of net retention and the CEO's role in creating clarity in CX. So, Gru, from your perspective, a couple of salient takeaways that you want to share with the group?
Yeah, I thought Nick was incredibly impactful. He first of all, the CEO needs to be highly involved in measuring, reviewing, and understanding churn and the cross sell, up to and including, which I thought was a great idea, is doing the same level of detailed and rigorous pipeline calls for churn as you do for the normal pipeline.
Yep.
Right, which I thought was really smart. When you think about the effort to retain and the margin impact versus going after new logos, it makes a lot of sense. I don't see a lot of people doing it though.
So, Gru, you know what's so ironic about that? Everybody wrote it down. It was, and then to your earlier theme of radically simplify, like what a radically simple thing to do to put tenacity into customers that might say, I'm leaving, yet nobody, and we had a super impactful group of CEOs in the virtual room, nobody was doing it. So then, Gru, what about specifically around net retention? And I guess the type of person you need to be running customer experience, because everybody says, oh, the CEO needs to pay attention to this. The CEO needs to pay attention to that. It's got to be a top priority of the CEO. It's like, well, there's only so much bandwidth. So thoughts on just the model and the way to think about covering retention and thinking about retention?
Yeah, I think the simple answer is you need to put as much rigor behind the customer success organization, the leader you hire, the processes, the coverage model as you do around sales. And for some reason, people look at customer success as more simple. Like, oh yeah, we're doing all this stuff in sales, but customer success, we're kind of, we're going to cover some accounts, we're going to hire some CSMs, and we'll improve retention. Not so much, right? There has to be a super tight interlock between CS and sales for things like referring cross-sell opportunities back. And what we're seeing, and we see it all the time, is people, for some reason, they're treating it like, yeah, it's important, but they're not putting the same rigor into the model.
Right. Well, and if you think about where value gets created or value gets destroyed, it always gets destroyed on, the leaky boat and the leaky bucket, if you will, when it's leaking out the back door. So really rich discussion on that. And I know Mel's going to send out some insights as part of this show that people can dive a level deeper, not only around Gainsight's solution, and why they continue to be the leader in what they do in customer success for Nick and his team, but also as you think about the process of allocating across the customer experience, that was another thing for me, Gregoire, that Nick said, between how you think about marketing to your install base, how you think about reminding them the value capture. Like you have to put the same level of rigor into the experience that you do into the activation and acquisition. That was the big headline. And a lot of CEOs are leaning in going, it's probably an area we're not doing enough of. So, which then led to the last topic, and it's always a fan favorite, and it comes up on every one, which is talent. And specifically, do I have the right talent? And we got into some pretty rich discussions around all the way down to the individual contributor level, to the rep level, because people are realizing where leverage exists now in the labor market. So thoughts on the talent conversation, because it is a top 3 issue for the CEO.
Yeah, and I mean, it's becoming more and more exacerbated because it's just in the pandemic, the leverage is shifting to the employee and the sales leaders.
Yep.
They want more money. They want to live wherever they want. And I think there's also been a mentality of holding on to people that are pretty good, but not great, which is dangerous. And I think somebody called this not managing the 90 percenters. Mm-hmm. And this is, I really like this thought, which is if you can get the people at 80 to 90% of quota attainment up to 100, think of the impact that has on the business, because most companies have quite a few people in that range. So don't ignore those people. They're the ones that are shaping your sales culture and holding you back from hitting 100% quota.
And but Greer, there was also questions around hey, how do we think about a hybrid model? How do we think about bringing all of our people back? How do we think about people always working from home? Do I even need all these buildings? Should I be outsourcing my inside sales? Should I push for more? Like, lots of questions on the evolution of the workplace of the future and its impact on the employee experience, on the go-to-market talent experience.
Mm-hmm.
So any takeaway and big, recommendation right now as we sit here at the middle of the year?
I think what I've seen is people last year moved too slow on some of these changes, and now a lot of them, I would say, are actually moving too fast. They're making decisions, and I think some of it's going to come back. But for example, pulling people back in the office, I get a lot of questions about that. Should I bring people back in? Like, is that really going to make a major business impact?
Right.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Right. Should you shift all inside sales? Maybe. Or maybe you should go to e-commerce or go even further and just optimize the entire digital experience for all sellers, not just inside versus field. So I think you need to reevaluate your revenue growth strategy first before you start making changes in the short term that you're going to have to undo, 12 months from now. I guess that would be my big takeaway on the talent side. Kind of take a step back before you start making a bunch of tactical changes.
Yeah. The takeaway for me in that section, I think, was many of the CEOs that were in the room were in the virtual room, I should say, were owned by private equity firms. And there was an investment thesis that might have been 12 to 24 months underway, and then the pandemic hit. And the ability to kind of reset their own fact base, including the talent required to bring it to bear. Because on the flip side, most companies are going to get a hall pass that didn't grow through the pandemic. Like, you'll be able to say, we retooled strategically, we rethought about our talent, and boy, 22 and 23, look at the value we created. You'll have the opportunity to do that. And I think people are asking the question of, how do I think through those decisions? Because right now the labor market is hot.
No question.
Yeah. All right, everybody. So you've got opportunity relative to being close to the customer, as we talked about at the top of the show, and Mike's insights, organizational clarity around CX, and specifically, how are you leaning in on net retention, including the variable revenue models and the new revenue models that your company is standing up. Lastly is talent. How robust are you being, and how are you thinking through the talent decisions? Attached to this show, there will be a downloadable link where you can get the detailed show notes and make sure that you're taking what's best of breed as you think about the second half of the year. Gru, always good to see you, man. Thanks for joining. And everybody else, until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.